Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating and honestly pretty wild world of French slang, or as it's known over there, argot. Now, if you've ever tried listening to a casual conversation on the streets of Paris, or maybe just scroll through a French TikTok feed, you might have felt like your high school French textbooks completely lied to you. It's super easy to just dismiss this informal street language as broken or lazy French, but today, we're going to completely strip away that perception. We're going to look at some hard academic research and the absolute latest digital trends to reveal a rich, historical code that is alive, mathematically clever, and deeply rooted in sociology. So what could 15th century thieves and Gen Z TikTokers possibly have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But the answer actually lies in this deeply human need to communicate right in plain sight without being understood by the authorities. And that's true whether that authority is a medieval prison guard or, just your parents reading over your shoulder. Let's start by looking at the hypermodern 2026 Gen Z lexicon that is basically taking over French digital culture right now. We're talking about words like meuf for a woman or a girl, ouf for crazy or insane, chelou for sketchy, ça meaning seriously, and wesh, which is a super casual greeting kind of like yo. If you're consuming authentic French content online today, these words are literally everywhere. But here's the thing, these aren't just random sounds mashed together. They actually have a massive lineage. Because the shocking truth is, this slang traces its documented origins all the way back to the 14th century. Yeah, the very first written traces pop up in a document from the Châtelet de Paris prison in 1372, where inmates were actually using coded words to speak secretly. Fast forward to 1453 in Dijon, and a notorious thieves guild known as the Coquillards gets arrested. They had an entire highly developed secret language called jargon jobelin that they used to coordinate crimes and evade the law. So what we're looking at is an unbroken chain of coded rebellion, stretching straight through history to the 2026 digital culture of Gen Z. Back in 1889, French researcher Marcel Schwab totally hit the nail on the head. He wrote, "Argot is an artificial language intended not to be understood by a certain class of people." That is the absolutely crucial point here. Slang isn't a mistake. Its fundamental historical purpose is secrecy. It's an active mechanism explicitly designed to exclude outsiders. And, well, to exclude outsiders effectively, you're going to need a system. Section 1. The Mechanics of Verlan. I absolutely love this part because it shows that slang is, well, it's practically mathematical. Verlan is a very specific type of slang where you literally invert the syllables of a word. In fact, the word Verlan itself is a Verlan word. If you take the French phrase l'envers, which literally means backwards, and you just flip the syllables, ver and lan, you get Verlan. It's incredibly clever, right? This technique has actually been around for decades, but it absolutely exploded via French hip-hop and still totally dominates modern youth vocabulary today. Think about how standard French transforms into that modern street slang we just talked about. The standard word for woman, femme, flips its sounds to become mouf. The word for crazy, fou, flips into ouf. And lourd, which literally means heavy, but is used colloquially to mean annoying, inverts into relou. It's like an instant cryptographic key. If you don't know the rule, you are completely locked out of the conversation. Section 2. Identity and covert prestige. Now, this whole dynamic is known in sociolinguistics as covert prestige. It's this brilliant theory by William Labov. It's basically when non-standard or, so-called incorrect language is used totally intentionally. Using slang isn't a sign of poor education. It is a powerful, deliberate badge of community belonging. It gives the speaker a hidden prestige within their specific in-group, asserting their identity against a mainstream culture that, frankly, often marginalizes them. And this isn't just theory, by the way, it's heavily documented. An academic master's thesis by Anne Sirène dives incredibly deep into the argot de cité, the slang of the housing projects, through Faiza Gan's famous novel, Kif Kif Demain. The research highlights that for immigrant youth living in the banlieue, or the suburbs, standard French can feel super alienating. It acts as this constant reminder of academic struggles and societal discrimination. So what do? They create their own linguistic haven. They mix standard French with their diverse cultural backgrounds to create a group identity where they finally feel safe and understood. And what's so fascinating here is that this illustrates a completely universal human behavior. Labov actually originally developed his theories by studying the vernacular of marginalized youth in 1972, Harlem, New York. Sirène applies those exact same sociolinguistic principles to the modern Parisian suburbs. So across decades and entirely different continents, we see the exact same phenomenon. marginalized youth using language as a shield and as a unifier to combat social and educational alienation. Section 3. Gen Z digital culture. Jumping back to today, modern argot heavily borrows from other languages, especially Arabic, mainly because the Parisian suburbs are home to so many vibrant immigrant communities. The verb kifer, which means to love or really like something, comes directly from the Arabic word kif. Sa, meaning for real, comes from saha. And wesh, that ubiquitous Gen Z greeting, is also borrowed directly from Arabic. This cultural borrowing enriches the language so much, creating a completely unique urban identity that eventually, inevitably, leaks out onto TikTok and Instagram. So to actually navigate 2026 digital culture, you kind of need a texting cheat sheet. If you want to laugh online in French, you don't type ha ha ha, you type MDR, which is short for mort de rire, literally meaning dying of laughter. It's the exact equivalent of our LOL. If it's really funny, it's PTDR, exploded with laughter. JSP is your quick shortcut for je ne sais pas, or I don't know. And CV is just a lightning-fast way to write ça va, or how's it going. It's all about rapid-fire efficiency and digital in-group signaling. But here's the catch, and you really have to remember this. Slang is a living, breathing organism with an incredibly rapid life cycle. Because the entire point of argot is covert prestige and secrecy, the moment a slang word becomes too popular, like the moment a mainstream politician or a 50-year-old teacher uses it, it completely loses its power. What is cutting edge right now in 2026 might be totally uncool and faded by 2027. The youth will literally always have to invent new words just to stay one step ahead of the standard language. Which leaves us with this final, honestly pretty fascinating question. We've seen how 14th century prison codes evolved all the way into modern texting abbreviations. Language is just locked in this constant, endless cycle of rebellion, adoption, and reinvention. So, if today's secret slang becomes tomorrow's standard French, how on earth will the next generation rebel?